next
Next
week,
week,
right?
right,
On this
on this
day
day
next
next
week,
week,
it
it
might be
might be
on
on
in the morning or in the afternoon. So maybe the
the
faculty
faculty
will let
will
you
let you
know.
know.
Okay,
Okay.
and the final exam will last for 120 minutes instead of 90 minutes that I mentioned last week, right? Because after considering everything, after considering the possibility of finishing the final exam in 90 minutes, I think that you maybe most of you cannot finish it in 90 minutes. So I decided to change, right? I decided to extend the duration of the final exam to 120 minutes. And it is still written exam and open book exam. There are still three questions, right? There are still three questions, and I would like you to read the question very carefully because we have a listening case. So I would like you to read it very, very carefully and analyze the question before you go to write the answer for the question. So first of all, you need to, analyze the question to see what the teacher asks you, right? What the teacher asks you, and then write down some, write down the outline for the question, right? Outline for the question, outline for the answer of the question. Huh? So one question, historical context, one question related to the case study, and the application of theories, right? Only three theories: liberalism, realism, and Marxism. On, you need to apply one of these theories in explaining one of the event happening recently. So that's the reason why last week I advised you to to read the news, right? Read the news recently, frequently as well. And one question related to global issues, right? That is the structure, right? The structure of the final exam. So now, because there are a lot of things, there are a lot of things related to historical context, related to theories, and also related to global issues. So maybe I will give you some um, some main areas, right? Some main areas or some main topics that you can focus on now. First of all, related to historical context, in historical context, we study four lectures, right? We study four lectures. So first of all, is it related to the emergence of international society, right? The very introduction to international relations, right? And then we study World War One, World War Two, and then we study two lectures on the Cold War, right? So here are the main points, the main things that you need to know, right? Yeah, that you need to have general information, not only general information, but then detailed information as well, before you want to get a good mark on your final exam. So first of all, the rise of modern international society. You need to know about this one, right? So how and when the modern international society emerged, right? How and when did the modern international society emerge, and what are the main characteristics of modern international society? You need to know how to analyze it, right? It's the main characteristics of modern international society. And then uh, in the First and the Second World War, at least you must know the causes of the two world wars, the main actors, right? The main actors in the First and Second World War, the main events, the main conferences, the main treaties. So which conferences or which treaties ended the First World War, and which conferences or treaties ended the Second World War? And also, what are the implications of those conferences or those treaties, right? For example, the main conference ended the First World War. It was the Paris Peace Conference, the Paris Peace Conference. So at least you must know about the Paris Peace Conference, which ended the First World War, and also the treaties of Versailles in the First World War. So you must know about that. Okay, and the same with the Second World War as well. You must know about those information, know about that information, huh? Causes, main actors. Who was the main actors in the First and the Second World War? Right. Which was the main factors leading to the First and the Second World War? The main events, the main conferences, and main treaties. All right. And of course, some lessons, right? Lessons learned from the First and the Second World War as well. And then the causes of the Cold War, right? The causes of the Cold War. You must know about the causes of the Cold War, huh? What is the Cold War as well? Right? What is the Cold War as well? The main periods, the main characteristics of this period of time, the Cold War, the main events of the Cold War, main policies of the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, the end of the Cold War, why the Cold War ended, what factors, right, leading to the end of the Cold War, right, and what was the implications of the end of the Cold War as well, and also the world, right, the world and world order after the Cold War as well. So this is everything, right? This is everything that you need to study, right? You need to study in historical context, right? For the question. For the question on historical context, right? The question on the historical context will fall into one of these issues, right? Fall into one of these issues. Of course, it should be not the simple question, but it is the, how to say, it is hybrid question, like you need to gather in a lot of information, right? Gather a lot of information. You must link the information together in order to give the answer for the question. Okay. That is the historical context. And maybe if you have any question for me in this period, just, you know, write it down, write it down. And when I finish, you know, introducing this slide, so you can ask me, right? You can ask me if after I finish this one. And then for the second question, right? For the second questions, you will be asked a question related to theory, and you will be given a case, right? A case study, right? A case study with very general introduction, not introduction, very general description of the case study. I give you the general idea about the case, and then I will ask you apply one of these theories, one of the IR theories, to explain the behavior of state, right, the behavior of states in that case study. Why the state in that case study did what they did, right? Apply realism, liberalism, and Marxism to explain, right? And when, of course, when you apply international relation theory to understand something, you should start with the core assumptions of HV theory, right? I mentioned in my slide. I mentioned in my slide. I mentioned in the lecture, in every lecture about international relation theories, that every theory has some core assumptions, right? Any theory has some core assumptions. Realism has some core assumptions which are very different from the assumptions, the core assumption of liberalism, and which are very different from the core assumption of Marxism as well, right? So you must start with the core assumption. That means when you study, you must be very sure about the core assumptions. Right? If you read the slide and you cannot understand, you should refer to the recording that your friends had already recorded during the lecture, or you can read the book. Right? Read the book that I gave you at the beginning of the course. It should be very clear in the book and in my lecture. Right, and then each theories, right? Each theory will have some strands, right? Will have some strands. For example, realism, we have classical realism, neorealism, classical liberalism, and neoliberalism, Marxism as well. Right, Marxism. We have Marxism and neo-Marxism. Right, so basically here, when you want to apply, theory in order to explain, case study. After you mention core assumption, you need to decide. You need to decide which strand will you use, right? Neo-realism or classical realism, neoliberalism, or classical liberalism. Maybe I will ask you, apply Marxism, right, or apply liberalism to explain the behavior of state X or state ABC in the case study. So you need to decide. So whether you apply, classical liberalism or neoliberalism to explain this case, you must decide. You need to decide. So which strands of liberalism should be better? To explain this case study, right? Or sometimes you need to refer to some related concepts, right? Related concepts of each theory, right? For example, realism, we have many concepts. For example, security dilemma, for example, balance of power, balance of threat, right? Something like that. Or liberalism, we have a concept like economic interdependence, right? Or democratic peace theory, right? So you need to ensure that you understand all of those concepts, right? All of those concepts. Or peripheral countries, core country, right? Something like that, right? So you must be ensure that you know all of those concepts, understand those concepts. So in some situations, you need to use the related concepts, right, to explain the behavior of states as well. And of course, during the lecture, during the lecture, I had already mentioned some case study. For example, I asked you to explain the behavior of states during the First World War, Second World War, from realist perspective or from liberal perspective. So if you recorded it, you can repeat it, or you can watch it again, right? Watch it again. But one thing that you need to know, that when you speak and when you write, spoken language and written language must be very different. The way you speak is very different from the way you write, right? You speak and write must be very different. When you write, you need to, you must be very careful, right? You must be very careful. You must have some, for example, general argument first of all, and then supporting argument, right? Supporting argument, and then example, right? Example. And when I give you the case study, I just give you the very brief information, very brief description. And if you want, you can find some you know, statistics, maybe numbers, right? Statistics, number, or other information online to support your argument, right? Don't try to, you know, try to find the answer online, because you cannot find the answer online, right? But you can find the statistics, that means numbers or further information to support your, you know, your argument, to use as examples, right? You as examples for your answer. Okay, so here is like this one. Read the case study and then apply one of the theory to explain the case. Right, give you description. Right, very brief description here. For example, I give you state X and state Y cooperate or something like that, and then I will ask you, so what is the realist perspective on the behavior of state X and state Y in the case above, right? Or what is the liberal perspective or Marxist perspective on the behavior of state X and state Y in the aforementioned case, in the case above, right? So you need to, you know, think, right? Think first of all, and then try to structure, right? Structure your answer, right? Your answer. Because, you know, I give you 120 minutes for 3 questions, right? For 3 questions. That means you have around 40 minutes for each question. So I highly recommend you spend about 5 to 10 minutes, spend about 5 to 10 minutes writing down the structure of the, you know, the structure and the idea of your answer, right? 5 to 10 minutes on structure, right? On outlining the structure, and then spend 20, 25 to 30 minutes, right? Normally 25 minutes on writing, right? On writing, and 5 minutes on reviewing, right? 5 minutes on reviewing, to make sure that you have a perfect, you know, answer for the question. So that is the strategy, right? And the last question, the final question on global issues, right? On global issues. So actually here we study some global issues, and I would like you to focus on these issues: clash of civilizations, war and peace, poverty and development. No environmental issues here, huh? So you can skip that topic. Humanitarian intervention and the United Nations and other international organizations. These are the main issues. I will ask you a question related to these topics, right? Related to these topics. Right. So basically, you can you can read the book and read the slide, right? Revise the slide to see what I, you know, what I put focus on in each of these issues, right? In each of the issues, and you just need to focus on that, right? You just need to focus on that. Especially, you should read the questions that I gave you after each topic, right? It should be very useful. It will be very useful for you if you try to revise all of those questions, right? Because if you can answer all of those questions, the question that I put after every lecture, if you can answer those questions, I believe that you can answer the question on the final exam. Okay, so next one, how is your paper marked? What is the marking criteria? Huh? So I am the person that likes reading the you know, the paper which has a very good structure, and I really highly value the paper that have very good structure, because when someone have a good structure, when they write something, that means that they have very good, you know, they have, you know, they have logic, right? They are logical person, and they have, when they have general idea about the topic, they can have a very good structure, because when they have general idea, they can view the question, and they can view the problem very thoroughly, and then they have very clear structure. So make sure that you show me that you have very clear structure, very clear structure. So what is a clear structure? A clear structure, first of all, must have introduction, must have must have, you know, central argument, right? Central argument. So central argument in the final exam should be, you know, the answer for the question, the answer for the question. First of all, let me know, you know, let me introduce to me, you know, the answer, your answer to the question. For example, I ask you what is X, what is Y. So first of all, just give me general idea about your question, about your answer first, you know, what you are going to do, what you are going to answer, right? What you are going to explain in that paper, right? So first of all, give me clear answer first of all, and then in the following paragraph or following part, you can give the supporting argument, right? Supporting argument to support the central argument that you give me at the very beginning of your answer, right? Right. So that is clear structure, clear structure. And I expect that, you know, each paragraph must have, you know, some point, must have one point, right? You know, maybe you can stretch, you can outline your answer like this. The first paragraph, the first part, you give me the central argument. That means you give me the answer. First of all, answer, a short answer, overall answer to the question that I gave you. And then in the second paragraph, or the second bullet point, the second paragraph, you can give me the in the first sentence, you give me the first supporting argument, and then you go to explain the supporting argument, that first supporting argument, and then you give me a example, right? Example. And then in the next paragraph, in the first sentence, you give me the second supporting argument, and then you explain the supporting argument, and you finish with one example, for example. And next, in the next paragraph, you give me the third supporting argument, and then you explain the third supporting argument and give me one example, right? So that means with the central argument, you have three supporting arguments to explain that idea to me, right? Explain the idea to me. And each supporting argument is written in a paragraph, a very clear structure, for example, right? For example, right? And then that is the first criteria. The second criteria is you have convincing supporting arguments and updated information and updated examples as well. Right? I would like you to give me updated information and updated examples. Right? The more updated, the better. Right? The more updated, the better. And of course, you need to give me some convincing supporting argument. And also one of the core thing, right? One of the very important criteria for your paper, right? To see whether you have a good paper or a poor paper, it is originality. Show me that you are original person, right? An original person. Show me something that I didn't read before. Right? Maybe I didn't read before something new, but it must be convincing and it must be true. I do not create something which is which is not happening, or which haven't happened, right? Show me something show me the perspective that I didn't know before. Maybe it's very new to me, dazzle me, right? It's, you know, make me surprised. Maybe something that I would be very, I would be, you know, very happy, and I will, you know, highly value your paper if you can, you know, put original thought, right? Original thought in your paper, right? Your perspective, right? Your perspective, not something that you listen from the teacher, not something that you listen from the internet, on the internet, or you copy from the internet, but, you know, your thinking, right? There are some questions that ask you about your opinion, something like that. So you must show me your thinking, right? Your original opinion, right? And of course, you need to give support your opinion as well. And you must show general understanding of the course as well. Show me that you understand. In general, you can understand the course, right? You have general idea about the course. You know about historical context, you know about the theory, and you know about global issues, right? In reading your, you know, in reading your final exam, so I can know that whether you understood the lectures or not. Okay. And finally, your paper must be written in a quite good written communication, huh? Quite good English, good enough so that I can understand your idea, right? Good enough, right? Try, right? Try to write it in clear, in a clear way, right? In a clear way. In case cheating is found on 2 or more exam papers, right? So if I find that maybe 2 of you or more than 2 of you, some of you, you know, have very similar writing style, very similar information, and very similar, you know, structure of your final exam, of your paper. If it is 10% a similarity in each question, you will be, you know, your total mark will be deducted by 10%, right? By 10%. And in case, you know, in case 20% similarity in each question is found, your total mark will be deducted 20%, right? 20%. Or from 30% to 50% similarity, your total mark, both of you or all of you, will be deducted by 50%. And if I find that 50% similarity, right, you will be given 0, right? That means you fail this class, right? And maybe next year we will meet each other again, right? Maybe. So make sure do not try to you know, to help others, right? Do not try to help others, right? Do not believe that you have time, do not believe that you have time to help others. But, you know, in case, right, in case you have intention to give your paper to your friends, right, do not do that, right? Do not do that. It is too you know, risky, too risky. Both of you or all of you will be, if cheating is found, you will be punished, right? You will be punished. Okay, so that is everything about the final exam. So I have given to you the further instruction on the final exam on international relations course. So now, if you have any questions to me, you can ask, Right? You can ask any questions, right? Anything that you know that you are not sure, or that you are still, you know, do not really understand, you can ask me. Fine over here, headline your words. Of course, there is no limitation. There is no limitation for your words. You know, I cannot limit. You can write. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether the faculty will limit you or not. But personally, I do not limit you. But you know, if you chose, really. Yes, you need to, because it is open book exam, so you need to turn on your camera all the time, right? All the time when you are in the exam. So that is, you know, that is the law. That is about regulation of the University of Hanu. So you need to turn on the camera all the time. Make sure that you have camera, you have, you know, you can turn on camera, because if you do not turn on camera, I'm not sure, maybe the faculty or the teacher, the supervisor in that exam will not allow to take the final exam, maybe. Or if you do not turn the cam, your paper will not be accepted after, you know, after you finish the paper. So make sure that you obey, or you follow the regulation, huh? Do not try to break it, or do not try to do something that ruins your paper exam, your exam paper. Should we list the references or information and statistics cited in our yes, you must, you know, you must let me know, you know, you must let me know that where you take that information. If you take that information from the you know, from the source, right? But you don't need to you don't need to you don't need to, you know, to establish a reference list, like when you write, like when you write an essay. You just, when you mention the information on the internet or from the source, is not your source, but from the source that you find somewhere else. So you need to use brackets, you brackets, and you cite. For example, you take that information from foreign affairs, right? Foreign affairs. So you just, you know, give me information, right? Foreign affairs in the brackets, một đơn á, in the brackets. Khoa gửi cho các em rồi à? Did the faculty send you all regulations and everything? I didn't receive any information from the faculty about the, you know, the regulation or something. So maybe you should check the information, huh? Students are so lazy. Normally students are so lazy, checking so lazy checking the information. So you need to check, update information, right, regularly, because in some situation there are some changes. So you need to update your emails, right, from now on, until you finish all the exams this semester, right? So check the email, huh? Any Any other questions related to the knowledge, related to anything?
I have some questions related to the content that we have studied about week. I remember it's in week 5. I mentioned about security dilemma. Yeah. Can you talk again about that part?
Security dilemma, huh?
Yeah.
Security dilemma. It is a concept. It is a realist concept. Concepts that realist scholar or realists use a lot. Security dilemmas refers to a situation, right? Refers to a situation that in the international system, where there are many states, but in the system where, for example, there are some states in that system, but security refer to a situation that, for example, state A, at the beginning, state A have a very good idea, right? Because state A see that state A cannot, for example, state A cannot believe in other states, right? And state A do not know, state A does not know about the intention of other states, right? The intention or the plans of other states in the same system. So state A, build up military, build up, maybe you know military capability in order to secure secure their survival. But maybe for example, maybe state A buy more weapons, right? Buy more tanks, buy more you know the airplanes, right? Buy more submarines, right? In order to make sure that they survive in any situation, in any circumstances, right? That is a good idea. That's a good idea. That state A just want to defend themselves, right? To defend itself. However, state B in the same system, state B look at state A, and state B ask the question, very simple question, and very um, easy to understand question. That is, why does state A do that? Why does state A build up their military capability? Does state A have any intention to attack me, to attack state B, or to attack other state in the system, right? So state B at the same time, state B maybe, at the beginning, state B only want to defend themselves, like state A did, right? State B build up state B's capability, military capability, maybe, buy more submarines, right? Buy more tanks, weapons, build up nuclear weapons, etc. Just for security purposes, just for security purposes. However, state A look at that, and state A ask the same question: why state B do that, right? Why state B did that, right? And state A keep, building up military capability. And when state A keep build up capability, state B look at that and do the same, build up, and state A build up, state B build up, and they enter a race, right? They enter a race, this arms race, and arms race actually lead to security dilemma. Maybe at the beginning they have a good intention, that is just for security purposes. However, because they live in a anarchical world, there is no world government that help them and regulate, and between them there is no trust, there is no communication. They cannot understand each other. They cannot understand the behavior of each other. So they keep building up military capability, and finally they enter an arms race, and that leads to security dilemma, right? Security dilemma, right? They can, why it is dilemma? Why it is dilemma? Because they cannot stop, right? They cannot stop, because when they stop keeping, when they stop building up military capabilities, they felt insecure, right? They felt insecure, right? That's why they cannot stop. But when they enter the arms race, they know very well that when they enter the arms race, it makes the world, or it makes the system becomes more dangerous, because everyone keep building up their military, so make the world very um, very dangerous, right? In a very dangerous situation, because anyone have, maybe you have anyone, any country in the system have weapons, nuclear weapon, for example. So the world in a very dangerous situation, huh? But they cannot stop. Right? They cannot stop, because when they stop but ever keep building up military capability, they feel insecure. They feel insecure. Right? That is why they are in dilemma, right? In dilemma that they cannot stop, but they cannot, keep building up, right? They do not how to choose, right? They cannot choose between the two options, stopping or keeping. That is why it is dilemma. Why is dilemma? Does that make sense here? Bùi Hồng.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I have some other questions.
Okay, just go ahead.
And I think it's also in the same week 5 is about offensive and defensive realism. I understand it quite well. I just read your slide and find it online, but it doesn't have a clear explanation to me.
Okay, so now you want to ask about offensive realism and defensive realism, huh?
Yes.
The differences between offensive and yes.
And I also saw that in 10th, 10th.
Okay, so first of all, I will answer your question related to the differences between offensive realism and defensive realism. Huh? So first of all, you need to know that offensive realism and defensive realism are two theories, and two neo-realist perspective, neo-realist ways of thinking, right, or theories, right? They are both, right? We have, when we mention realism, first of all, when we mention realism, we have two main strands, huh? Classical realism and neo-realism. Classical realism we already mentioned, and I think you understand it. And neo-realism, in neo-realism we have two further branches, right? We have two sub-branches. It is defensive realism and offensive realism. The main purpose, right? The main purpose of defensive realism is to defend, right? Is to defend, right? So defensive realists would argue that state, right? State are forced to react to international system. The behavior of state can be explained from the outside world, right? From the international environment. But state will stop. I mean, it is related to the idea of power. It is related to the idea of power that the behavior of state. First of all, the behavior of state is affected by the international environment, first of all. And then state, just according to defensive realism, state will, only building up military capability. to defend itself, and state will stop building up military capability when state feel that state, have enough capability or enough enough capability to defend itself, so state will stop, right? State will stop. But it is opposite. Defensive realism is very opposite to offensive realism. Offensive realism focus on the idea that a state will not stop building up their military capability even when they have enough power to defend itself. According to offensive realism, state will not stop because the main purpose of the state is to become the most powerful country in the system. And only when state become the most powerful country or the most powerful actor in the system will that state stop. Right. So offensive realism and defensive realism will give us a very different, contradictory idea about the behavior of the state. Normally, offensive realism and defensive realism would not explain, but give us the prediction of the behavior of the state. For example, the very familiar case is the rise of China. Right? The rise of China. Some years ago, many scholars in international relations asked the question that will China rise peacefully? Will China rise peacefully? Right? Because after the economic reform in China in 1978, China generally, right, or gradually becomes the second largest economy in the world, surpassed Japan to become the second largest economy in the world in 2010. Right? And nowadays, China is a very strong economy in the world. Right, and China has some very assertive activity. China is very assertive in many activities in the South China Sea and in the East China Sea with Japan, etc. Right. So the question is that will China rise peacefully? So defensive realism would argue that yes, China will rise peacefully because the main purpose of the state is to defend itself. Right? China will rise, but China will rise peacefully because China just want to defend itself. China build up military, China have bigger economy in order to defend itself. Right? So when China have enough capability, China will stop. That is the idea of defensive realism, right? Defensive realism. But offensive realists would give very, pessimistic idea about the rise of China. They argue that no, China will not rise peacefully because it is not helping China to survive, in this world, and offensive realism will answer that only when China becomes the hegemon in the region, that means the most powerful country in the system, China will stop. Because when China becomes the most powerful country in the system, no one can challenge the survival, or no one can challenge the position of China in that system. So it's better for China, right? It is like in the period after the Cold War, right? After the Cold War, the United States was the most powerful country in the world, right? So no one can challenge the position of China. No one can challenge the position of the United States. So that is when the United States became the hegemon, or became the most powerful country in the system. So offensive realism argue that only when China become become the most powerful country, like the United States was after the Cold War. China would stop. China would stop. But before China reaching that position, China would not stop, and China cannot rise peacefully. Cannot rise peacefully. That is the normally offensive realism and offensive realism would give us the prediction for the behavior of state, for the behavior of the state. In the in the international relations, right? For example, maybe you ask a question. So, what did China now? What is China doing now in the South China Sea? What is China doing now in the South China Sea? From the perspective of offensive realism and from the perspective of defensive realism. Offensive realism and defensive realism would give us a very different explanation about what China is doing in the South China Sea, right? Defensive realism argue that China is just what China is doing is just about defending China's interest, right? But offensive realism would explain that what China is doing in the South China Sea is the way China wants to become the most powerful country in the system, right? In the region, right? In the region, because when China becomes the most powerful country in the region, no one can challenge the power of China. So China can survive, right? China can survive, or China can have, China's survival cannot be challenged by anyone, right? So they give us very different idea about, they give us a very different prediction or different explanation. Right? It's just about the viewpoint, the perspective. Each theory, right, look at the same situation from a very different perspective, right? From very different perspective. It is like when you wear if you wear sunglasses, right? You look at the world when you wear sunglasses. If you wear red sunglasses, you will look at the world. You will look at the world and see that the world is red, but you wear black sunglasses, right? From the same world, with the same world. If you wear black sunglasses, so you will see that the world is black, but you wear pink, the world is pink. But you wear, yellow, the world will turn yellow, right? The same here. If you apply realism, defensive realism, to look at the same event, you see that, this is this, but you look at the event from liberal perspective, you see that with the same event, but it has very different idea, right? It has very different idea. You will see it from very different idea, right? You have different perspective from it, and you have different explanation. You receive different explanation from it. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and I give that a different perspective so that one of them is not all bad or good. Is that right?
No, yeah, it's not about good or bad. It's not about good or bad. It's just, it's just about giving another perspective. You cannot look at the situation from just one perspective, right? You cannot do that. Right? You cannot do that, right? You must look at one event from multiple perspectives, so that you can know the event better, But here, because we are studying, so I just, in the final exam, I just ask you to apply one of the theories, right? Maybe realism, liberalism, or Marxism, to explain just one event, right? One theory to explain one event, right?
Thank you very much.
What's your name? Do we hold on? Yes, okay. Just go ahead.
I have some problem.
Can you explain a bit about Kantian triangle and the base superstructure model?
What's that?
Yes.
Kantian triangle and what?
The base superstructure model.
Oh,
Yes.
in Marxism, huh?
Yes.
Kantian triangle, it is the idea of liberalism, huh? The idea of liberalism. So actually, in order to understand classical liberalism, so I would like you to look at Kantian triangle. The liberalism, normally we study liberalism, we thought that liberalism only explain, peace, right? Only explain peace. But actually, liberalism can explain why war happened as well, right? Why wars have happened as well. Because when we study realism, we know that, according to a liberal idea, liberal perspective, war is inevitable, right? War is inevitable. It could be because of human nature, or it could be because of international structure or international environment, right? So war is inevitable according to realist argument. But from liberal perspective, according to liberalism, war is very possible. War is very possible. Um, and war is possible when, right? According to Immanuel Kant, one of the very prominent scholars, right? Philosopher and scholar. He argued that peace can be achieved, right? Peace can be possible, very possible, if, in the international system, there are three components, there are three factors. First of all, democracy, right? Democracy do not find each other. So if all countries in the system are democracy, right, are democratic states, so so state will not fight each other, right? Because democratic states, they share some core values, huh? Right? They have the same political system, huh? And public opinion matters, right? Public opinion matters in democracy, right? And leaders have responsibility to respect public opinion, right? In all democratic states, they respect those values, right? They respect those values. So before war happened, right? Before war happened, the decision to war must go through many steps. In democratic states, right? It is very different from authoritarian states. The decision to war is much easier in an authoritarian state, because in authoritarian states, only one person make decision, or a small group of people, elite people make decision. So the decision to war is much easier compared to democratic states, according to Immanuel Kant, right? Because in Immanuel Kant, the decision to war must go through many steps, right? And public opinion matters, media matter, right? So first of all, democratic states do not fight each other. So first of all, according to Immanuel Kant, right, peace can be achieved, first of all, through, democratization. That means make all countries become democratic states, so war can be achieved. That is the first factor. And in the second point of the triangle, in Kantian triangle, it is economic interdependence. Economic interdependence. Immanuel Kant argued that when states are interdependent economically, that means when they dependent on each other in terms of economy, the possibility of war can be, can be very small, right? Can be very small, because they have economic benefits, right? They benefit from each other in terms of economy. So they will be constrained, right? Leaders will be constrained when they try to make war with other country. And in economic interdependence, Immanuel Kant also focused on the power of um, uh, power of big corporations, right? Power of big corporations. For example, like Apple nowadays, huh? Or Amazon or others, huh? Very big companies, or big company in Vietnam as well. Like, for example, in Vietnam, um, I forgot the name. Very famous, but I temporarily forgot it. Like some very big corporation in Vietnam, actually they have political saying, right? They have political voice, right? For example, Apple in the United States. So when the United States want to make war with other country, but if it is related to economic, if it is related to economic interest, so the United States must reconsider it, right? Must think think it over, right, before making war with the countries that the United States have interests in, right? So economic interdependence, right? Economic interdependence, and we can see it very clearly nowadays, right? Very clearly nowadays, right? When state have economic interest with each other, the possibilities of war can be very small, right? Become smaller. And then the last factors is about international organizations, right? The international organization. Immanuel Kant argued that when states become members of international organization, so international organization can regulate the war or conflicts among states, right? That is, that is the triangle of Immanuel Kant, or Kantian triangle, arguing that peace can be achieved with three main factors in the system: economic interdependence, democracy, and international organizations, right? That is Kantian triangle, right? So the very, liberals are very optimistic, right? Are very optimistic about international relations, right? About international relations. They explain that war can be constrained, right? Peace can be achieved. But at the same time, they are not, they also explain, liberalism also explain why war happened as well, right? Why war happened as well, right? So when missing one of the factors, right? Missing one of the factors, for example, war can happen. War can happen between democratic states and non-democratic states, right? A war can happen if um, uh, you know states do not have economic interest with each other, right? Or what can happen if there is no international organizations, or international organization fails to regulate the conflicts, right? Or settle conflicts, fail to settle conflicts among states, right? This is the time when this is the point when war can happen, right? War can happen according to liberalism, right? But general idea of liberalism is that, you know state can cooperate with each other, right? States can cooperate with each other, and human beings are basically very good, right? Human beings are basically good, right? They can work with each other, they can live in harmony, right? They can live in harmony, and they can, cooperate with each other, right? Because they know very well that when cooperation happens, right, they can receive a lot of benefits, right? That is the Kantian triangle. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I got it.
Mm-mm.
And what about the Bayes superstructure model?
It is, it is the fundamental idea of Marxism,
Maximum.
Marxism that you study in your Marxist class, or Leninist ideology, that you study it. But actually, it is a very simple idea that, if you consider if you can, according to Marxism, if you consider the society, society that you are living in as a house, just consider the society that we as people, right, as individuals, this we, the society that we are living in as a house, right? So every house, you look at the house, huh? Every house has a base, right? Has a base, and and a base is something that we cannot see, right? A base is something that we cannot see, and the, you know, the structure, right? The structure is maybe the ceiling, is maybe the, you know, the wall, that is what you can see, right? That is what you can see. And, you know, in society the same, right? It's like the house, we have the base, right? The base is something that we cannot see. However, the base is very important, because look at the house. If the house doesn't have the base, the house cannot be built up, right? Cannot be built up and cannot become a a house. So in the society the same, huh? The base is related to, you know, the base decide the economy, right? The base decides the economy. And, you know, the superstructure, it is related to, it may be related to anything. It's related to politics, right? The superstructure, it is the politics, right? The ideology that your country follow, right? The law, right? The content of the law that your countries pass. It is about the foreign policy that your countries, you know, conduct, right? Or make, right? It is about music, everything, right? Everything. This is everyone's life. It is superstructure, and in superstructure, it is included. It includes foreign policy. It includes international relation or foreign policy. But, you know, superstructure, according to Marxism, superstructure arises out of base, out of economic base, right? Out of economic base. Superstructure is built upon economic base. Is it base, right? But inside economic base, how to, here, because maybe you are, go here, just go to economic base and superstructure. There is a picture, huh? Yeah, the house, huh? For example, like this one. This is like the house, right? So the base is what you cannot see, right? However, the base actually influence, right? Influence the superstructure. Superstructure is what you is it is about activities in your daily life, right? It's about education, religion, family, mass media, politics, everything, right? Everything, almost everything, right? The way you think, it is about superstructure, right? The education that you receive, it is about superstructure. The religion that you follow, it is superstructure. The way your family, you know, treat each other, it is about superstructure. The media that you watch, the news that you watch every day, it is belongs superstructure. The law that you follow every day, it is about superstructure. The politics, right? Foreign affairs, right? It is about superstructure. And superstructure, this superstructure arises out of economic base, right? Economic, or in other words, economic base influences superstructure. Economic base includes, you know, relation of production and means of production, right? Means of production and relation of production, right? Relation of production, it is about you know, it is about the relationship between those who produce the products in the society, right? The relation in that the relation of people who make the product in society. And according to Marxism, it is about the relations about bourgeoisie and about proletariat, right? Bourgeoisie and proletariat. It is the base, the relation of production according to Marxism. It is about, the relationship between bourgeoisie, the the class who have property, right, and proletariat, the have-not class, right. So actually, the relation between bourgeoisie and proletariat actually affects, influence the superstructure. For example, according to Marxism, bourgeoisie exploits proletariat. So the superstructure here actually is actually influenced by the benefit of the bourgeoisie, because the bourgeoisie exploit the proletariat. So actually, superstructure reflects, the benefit of bourgeoisie, right? Not benefit of proletariat, according to Marxism, right? According to Marxism, Marx argue that in this society, because the bourgeoisie dominate economic base, right? So actually, superstructure reflects the interests, right? The interest of bourgeoisie. So education is reflect, right? Education is influenced by the idea of bourgeoisie, right? Religion reflect the ideology of bourgeoisie class or family as well. The way family is structured actually is influenced by the ideology or for the benefit of bourgeoisie class or mass media, right? Mass media is for the benefit of bourgeoisie or politics as well. Politics is for the benefit of bourgeoisie, because bourgeoisie class, this class actually dominate economic base. And here in the economic base, you see, because the bourgeoisie possess, right? Bourgeoisie have means of production, own the means of production, right? So proletariat have to work for bourgeoisie, right? So basically here in the base, right? In the base, bourgeoisie dominates the base, right? So everything here is influenced from here, but here is in the base, bourgeoisie dominates. So the superstructure is for the benefit of the bourgeoisie, right? So according to Marxism, so in order to change the superstructure, economic base must be changed, right? We must change the economic base. So how to change the economic base? Class must be eliminated, right? When in society there is no bourgeoisie and there is no proletariat, right? Where there is no class, right? No class, so interest, right? Or economic base, when there is no classes, so the base is dominated by everyone, not by bourgeoisie or by proletariat, but by everyone. So the superstructure here, right? So the superstructure will be for the benefit of everyone in society, Education is for everyone, religion for the benefit of everyone, mass media for the benefit of everyone, and politics for the benefit of everyone as well. But at this moment, according to Marxism, bourgeoisie still dominates the economic base. So the superstructure, everything in the superstructure is for the benefit of the bourgeoisie. Does that make any sense to you? It's a little bit, Marxism is a little bit difficult, to be honest, but hopefully you can.
I feel confused about the topic.
Vẫn còn feel confused. I'm sorry, Yasako, I think I will explain this in Vietnamese a little bit. So if you are in the class, so just forgive me. Okay. Cái này nhá, thì nó cũng, nếu như mà các bạn học triết rồi thì tôi nghĩ rằng là nó cũng không phải là quá khó. không quá khó, nhưng mà có lẽ rằng là môn tiếng Anh này hơi khó các bạn. Nhưng mà tôi nghĩ rằng là tiếng Anh nó còn dễ hiểu hơn là tiếng Việt đấy. Tiếng Việt đôi khi là không hiểu đâu. Rất là sorry các bạn, bởi vì nhiều lúc ấy chúng ta học về tiếng Anh mà, thế nên là cô tìm hiểu tài liệu tất cả các mọi thứ, ngay trước cô đọc cũng bằng tiếng Anh hết. Thế là nhiều lúc ấy tìm được một cái từ nó đúng nghĩa ấy, thì nó cũng hơi khó một xíu. Thế nên là không phải là nhiều khi ấy, những người học ngôn ngữ cho chúng ta, hay là những người mà học tiếng là học bằng tiếng Anh thì chúng ta cũng rất là khó xử, đúng không? Chứ không phải chúng ta muốn nói nửa Anh nửa Việt, mà bởi vì là nhiều lúc chúng ta không thể tìm ra một từ nào khác mà nó phù hợp hơn đó. Thì ở đây nhá, nói về cái superstructure và base á, thì các em biết rằng là ở trong Marxism, trong chủ nghĩa Marx ấy, thì các Marx có xây dựng và có nói rằng là xã hội của chúng ta thì nó bao gồm hai phần, giống như kiểu một cái nhà ấy thì sẽ gồm bao gồm hai phần, đúng không? Đó là phần móng, nó gọi là trong Marx gọi là economic base, tức là cấu trúc hạ tầng đấy, cấu trúc hạ tầng, kiến trúc thượng tầng, đúng không? Cơ sở hạ tầng và kiến trúc thượng tầng đấy. Cơ sở hạ tầng thì trong xã hội nó sẽ có một cái phần gọi là cơ sở hạ tầng, và cái kiến trúc thượng tầng thì cũng giống như trong nhà ấy, thì cơ sở hạ tầng là chính là cái base, là cái móng, còn kiến trúc thượng tầng là chính là tất cả những cái gì mà chúng ta có thể nhìn thấy được, đó là cái trần nhà này, cái sàn nhà này, cái tường này, vân vân, tất cả mọi thứ, đúng không? Thì trong xã hội thì các em thấy rằng là những cái mà chúng ta đang thấy á, ví dụ như là giáo dục này, chúng ta học, đúng không? Đi học này, tôn giáo này, đi chùa, chúng ta đi nhà thờ này, vân vân, đúng không? Cái cách mà mọi người trong gia đình đối xử với nhau này, hay là cái cách mà chúng ta nhìn nhận vấn đề này, hay là cái cách mà truyền thông này, hay là politics, chính sách đối ngoại này, hay chính sách đối nội này, hay là cái tư tưởng chính trị này, tất cả mọi thứ đấy nó thuộc về, hay là luật pháp này, tất cả nó thuộc về kiến trúc thượng tầng, kiến trúc thượng tầng. Và cái kiến trúc thượng tầng này theo như Marx ấy, theo như các Marx, theo trong Marxism trong Marxism thì nói rằng là cái kiến trúc thượng tầng này thì là được xây dựng trên nền móng của cơ sở hạ tầng, xây dựng trên nền móng của cơ sở hạ tầng. Cái cơ sở hạ tầng là cái gì? Cơ sở hạ tầng là nó bao gồm ví dụ như là quan hệ sản xuất, hay là phương thức sản xuất. Đấy, quan hệ sản xuất hay là phương thức sản xuất thì trong Marxist thì mình nói rằng là cái cơ sở tức là cái phương tiện sản xuất của chế độ nào thì sẽ quyết định đến cơ sở hạ tầng của cái chế độ đấy. Tức là ý muốn nói rằng là cái economic base này, đây nó gọi là economic base, cái base gọi là economic base. Base thì nó sẽ shape cái superstructure, tức là nó sẽ influence cái superstructure này. Hay nói một cách khác rằng là superstructure bị chịu ảnh hưởng bởi cái economic base này, superstructure bị chịu ảnh hưởng bởi economic base này. Và đồng thời thì superstructure cũng có một cái chiều ngược lại với economic base, tức là superstructure sẽ legitimate the base. Đấy, tức là superstructure sẽ tạo ra những cái ví dụ có thể là luật pháp, hoặc có thể là tư tưởng để nó củng cố cái economic base này, để củng cố cái economic base này. Cô lấy ví dụ như theo như Marx ấy, theo như Marx trong Marx thì ông ấy nói rằng là hiện tại, tức là ông ấy chỉ ra những cái stage of development, ví dụ như trong thời kỳ phong kiến này, thời kỳ hay là thời kỳ primitive society này, hay là thời kỳ là chưa có xã hội này, đến thời kỳ phong kiến này, tiếp tục đến thời kỳ capitalism này, rồi socialism, rồi là communism này. Thì ông ấy nói rằng là trong cái xã hội mà chúng ta đang sống ấy, đó là cái mà capitalist society á, thì sao trong cái xã hội mà chúng ta bây giờ chúng ta đang sống á, thì cái cơ sở hạ tầng này hay là cái mối quan hệ chủ yếu trong cái cơ sở hạ tầng này là chính là giữa hai tầng lớp chính, bourgeoisie và proletariat, tức là chủ nghĩa, tức là hai tầng lớp vô sản và tư sản. Thì trong cái economic base này, trong cái economic base, tức là trong cái nền móng đấy, thì là có hai classes, đúng không? Thì proletariat thì không có tài sản gì cả, tức là những người vô sản. Và những người vô sản thì khi mà họ không có tài sản thì họ sẽ đi làm cho bourgeoisie, đúng không? Thì bourgeoisie chính là cái người mà họ sở hữu cái công cụ sản xuất, sở hữu công cụ sản xuất. Ví dụ như là họ có nhà máy này, họ có mọi điều kiện, mọi cái công cụ để họ có thể tạo ra họ đã có thể tạo ra hàng hóa vật chất, đúng không? Thì đấy là tầng lớp tư sản. Và bởi vì tầng lớp tư sản, cái mối quan hệ trong cái economic base này đó chính là cái mối quan hệ giữa bourgeoisie và proletariat. Chính vì vậy rằng là các em thấy rằng là cái mối quan hệ theo như Marx ở đây thì sao ạ? Thì proletariat không có tài sản, đúng không? Và họ phải làm cho bourgeoisie. Thì bourgeoisie rõ ràng là cái người mà đang dominate cái economic base này, đúng không? Dominate cái economic base này. Đấy là theo quan điểm của Marx trong capitalist society đấy, đúng không? Thì bourgeoisie chính là dominate proletariat. Bởi vì bourgeoisie dominate proletariat ở trong dominate cái economic base này. Chính vì vậy cái superstructure, tức là mọi thứ mà chúng ta nhìn thấy, chúng ta đang sống cái này, thì nó đều nhằm để phục vụ cái lợi ích của bourgeoisie. Bởi vì là theo như Marx nói rằng là superstructure được xây dựng từ economic base mà. Thì bây giờ economic base đang bị thống trị bởi tầng lớp bourgeoisie, thì rõ ràng là những cái gì mà nó nằm trên cái cơ sở kiến trúc thượng tầng này thì nó đều chịu tác động bởi những cái tư tưởng của bourgeoisie. Tất cả mọi thứ, education sẽ bị chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie, religion cũng như thế, family cũng như thế, mass media cũng chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie và giúp đạt được lợi ích của bourgeoisie. Hay politics cũng chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie, tức là nó bị influence bởi ideology of bourgeoisie. Tất cả mọi thứ nó đều bị chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie. Bởi vì tầng lớp bourgeoisie đang gì ạ? Đang dominate mà, đang thống trị cái economic base mà. Đấy, đang thống trị economic base thì tất cả mọi thứ ở trên superstructure này đều bị chịu ảnh hưởng bởi cái tư tưởng của bourgeoisie. Đấy, và đồng thời thì khi mà tất cả cái tư tưởng này, ví dụ như luật pháp cũng chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie này, politics này, foreign policy này, mass media, tất cả mọi thứ, family, religion, education đều chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie. Và cũng trong một cái chiều cây ngược lại đó là gì ạ? Thì superstructure cũng nhằm để củng cố cái economic base này, đúng không? Bởi vì là politics chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie, law chịu tư tưởng của bourgeoisie. Chính vì vậy rằng là luật pháp ngày càng được đưa ra để nhằm cái mục đích đó là legitimate cái the base này, làm cho cái vai trò cũng như là cái ảnh hưởng của bourgeoisie ngày càng lớn, đúng không? Tức là nó là một vòng tròn, thì đấy là superstructure và base. Và theo như Marx thì nói rằng là sao ạ? Nếu như bây giờ chúng ta muốn là thay đổi á, thì chúng ta sẽ phải thay đổi từ cái economic base này, đúng không? Economic base này thì các em thấy rằng là Marx nói rằng là ở cái xã hội cộng sản ấy, có nghĩa ở trong xã hội cộng sản thì có nghĩa rằng là không có bourgeoisie mà cũng không có proletariat, tức là không có giai cấp, đúng không? Không có giai cấp thì tất cả chúng ta có thể hiểu đơn giản rằng là trong cái economic base này thì không ai là người thống trị cả, mà tất cả sẽ là người thống trị, đúng không? Tất cả sẽ là người thống trị bởi vì không có giai cấp nào cả mà, đúng không? Không có giai cấp, tất cả mọi người đều chung hết. Đó, cộng sản tức là cộng sản cùng chung hết, đúng không? Thì tất cả mọi người đều dominate. Và khi mà tất cả mọi người đều dominate cái economic base này thì cái superstructure này sẽ là cái superstructure chịu ảnh hưởng, và nó sẽ là cho lợi ích của tất cả mọi người chứ không phải là chỉ cho lợi ích của bourgeoisie nữa. Thì đấy là các em chỉ hiểu đơn giản là cái superstructure và cái economic base này giống như một cái ngôi nhà ấy, và cái phần trên, cái phần mà chúng ta nhìn thấy thì nó bị chịu ảnh hưởng cái phần mà chúng ta không nhìn thấy. Cái phần không nhìn thấy thì nó sẽ bao gồm là relations of production, means of production, cơ sở hạ tầng, kiến trúc thượng tầng là như thế. Kiến trúc thượng tầng là tất cả những cái gì mà đang ảnh hưởng đến cuộc sống của chúng ta hàng ngày, người ta nhìn thấy hàng ngày, đúng không? Thì theo như Marx thì nói rằng là tất cả những cái mà chúng ta đang sống hàng ngày, hít thở không khí hàng ngày, tin tức chúng ta nghe, luật pháp của chúng ta theo, thì tất cả những cái đấy nó đều chịu ảnh hưởng từ cái cơ sở hạ tầng. Cái cơ sở hạ tầng ở đây theo như Marx nói rằng là đang bị dominated bởi tầng lớp bourgeoisie, và tầng lớp bourgeoisie chính là cái tầng lớp mà nó shape superstructure ở trên. Bây giờ muốn thay đổi thì phải sao ạ? Thì phải bỏ xóa bỏ đi class, đúng không? Và ở mỗi một cái chế độ khác nhau, ở mỗi một cái stage of development khác nhau, giai đoạn khác nhau, thì chúng ta sẽ thấy rằng là superstructure và base cũng khác nhau. Ví dụ như trong thời kỳ phong kiến chẳng hạn, đúng không? Cô cũng đã giảng bài rồi đó, trong thời kỳ phong kiến chẳng hạn, thì cái economic base này nó không phải là cái mối quan hệ giữa vô sản và tư sản, mà nó là mối quan hệ giữa king và vua và nông dân chẳng hạn, vua và nông nô chẳng hạn. Thì cái economic base ở đây đó là nông dân phải làm việc cho vua, ví dụ như thế, đúng không? Nông dân phải làm việc cho vua, thì cái economic base ở đây nó sẽ là vua sẽ là người thống trị, lợi ích của vua sẽ là người thống trị. Thì tất cả những cái superstructure ở trên này, đúng không? Kiến trúc thượng tầng nó sẽ là nhằm cái làm lợi, đúng không, cho cái benefit của vua, hoặc là cái tư tưởng của vua nó sẽ tác động đến cái superstructure này, đúng không? Và tất cả mọi thứ education cũng là bị chịu tư tưởng của vua này, religion cũng thế, family cũng thế, mass media, politics cũng như vậy, đúng không? Thì ở mỗi một cái giai đoạn khác nhau, theo như đây, stages of development by Max. Đây, theo như Marx thì chúng ta sẽ có những cái giai đoạn phát triển khác nhau, đúng không? Ví dụ như đây ông ấy nói rằng là chúng ta có cái primitive communal system này, slave holding stage này, hay là feudal capitalist này, socialist system này. Đấy, cái này thì nó cũng chưa đúng hẳn đúng lắm đâu, các bạn có thể tìm những cái nguồn chính xác để đọc. Đây là cô thì search nhanh các bạn cũng thấy thôi. Đấy, ví dụ như đây, đúng không? Theo như Marx và Engels thì nói rằng là đấy có 5 cái giai đoạn phát triển như này. Đấy, giai đoạn mà primitive communalism này, có nghĩa là lúc này là cái giai đoạn mà hunting and gathering đấy. Còn feudalism này, đấy. Feudalism là cái giai đoạn king and serf đấy. Capitalism này, phương Tây bây giờ, đúng không? Socialism chúng ta này, communism đấy. Thì ở mỗi một cái giai đoạn thì chúng ta sẽ thấy rằng là sẽ có một cái superstructure khác nhau và cái base khác nhau. Rồi, ok. Does that make sense so far? Hopefully.
Yes, I got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Reference, huh? So reference, so when you check information from the internet or from the sources elsewhere, you need to tell me, you know, where you take it, right? Where you take it. Maybe you don't need to, you know, to set up a reference list like when you write an essay. You just need to, you know, put the name of the source in the bracket, right? In the bracket, ở trong ngoặc đơn á. Ví dụ như, for example, when you take information from the Wall Street Journal, right? So just tell me, right? You start the bracket, right? And tell me Wall Street Journal, comma, 2021, right? The name of the number of publishment of that article, maybe Wall Street Journal, comma, 2020 or 1995, and then end bracket, and the bracket. Yes, just write it right after the information that you cited from that.
Thưa cô, bạn Ánh có hỏi civilization.
Sorry?
Bạn Ánh có
Clash of civilization. Can you further explain a clash of civilization? I have very understanding about this part. Okay, clash of civilizations. It is the clash of civilizations. It is the idea of Huntington, huh? Samuel Huntington. So, according to Samuel Huntington, he's argued that in the future, that means after the Cold War, huh? So the clash or the war, according to Samuel Huntington, the war will not happen just because of the war will not happen because of, you know, because of different differences in interest, economic interest, or differences um, uh, in ideologies, not because of differences in interest, economic interest, or ideologies, or, you know, or power. But according to Huntington, war and conflict will happen because of civilizations, because of differences in civilizations. And according to Huntington, in his book, the same name, Clash of Civilization, in his book, he figure out, he tells us there are 9 main civilizations in the world, right? It could be, you know, European, right? Western civilization, Sinic civilization, Japanese and civilization, etc. You can refer to my presentation. And Huntington argued that in the future, conflicts and war will happen among or between these civilizations, right? For example, Western civilization will have war or conflict with, you know, Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization. So war happened not between, you know, not between countries with different ideologies. For example, Vietnam and the United States, they have different ideologies, very different ideology. But according to Huntington, uh, the war between the United States and Vietnam, because of differences in ideology, will, you know, less likely to happen. But, you know, the war will more likely to happen between different civilizations. For example, the United States and maybe countries in Islamic civilization. Why they? The reason why Huntington tells us is is that it is because of, you know, related to different cultures. Civilization is about cultures, huh? People from different culture will you know, people from different culture will conflict with each other because they have different language, different religions, right, different culture, etc. So they cannot live in harmony. So war and conflict will happen, and it is because of differences in civilization, not because of ideologies, not because of economic interest, but because of civilization. So that is the main idea of Daniel Huntington, right? Clash of civilizations. That is just that, right? Just that. And for more information, just refer to my presentation. Right? The main idea is that, according to Huntington, war and conflict will happen because of civilizations, not because of economic interest, right? Or because of differences in ideology, but because of clash of civilizations. Different civilizations will be likely to have war with each other. Okay. Any other question? Does that make sense to you, Anh? No, Anh? Maybe she's not in the class. Okay. Other question?
Yes, teacher. I forgot to unmute myself.
Oh, okay. So Yashiko, do you have any question for me? Do you have any difficulty in studying with me this semester?
So far, it's okay. I will study again to pass the AR for the exam, and so now it's okay. Thank you, teacher.
Okay. Or any, what about Clash of Civilization and civilizations is different from ideology, huh? See, civilization is different from ideology. Civilization is about culture, right? It's more about culture, religion, but ideology is more about I'll just say political system is like political system or political ideology, right? Political ideology. For example, you see this is ideology, these are differences in ideology. For example, the Soviet Union and the United States, they are very different in ideologies. You see, one side, they follow, for example, the United States, they follow capitalist system, capitalist ideology, right? While the Soviet Union followed socialist ideology. Socialist ideology. One side of the United States focus on free market, right? Free market and minimal role of government. However, the Soviet Union focused on centrally planned economy, right? And the maximum intervention of government in the market. A different ideology, right? One side, one party, right? The Soviet Union is, like one party country, right? One party country. But in the United States, they have multi-party, right? They have many parties, right? That is ideology. That is ideologies focus on political system, economic system differences in those factors. But civilization is more about religions, different religions, religions and different culture. For example, in the West, people believe in Jesus, right? But in Islamic civilization, people believe in Allah, people believe in Muhammad, right? Prophet of Allah, they only believe in Allah, and there is only one God, is the Allah. But in the West, maybe there are many kind of gods, right? Something like that. So that they believe in very different gods, right? It is about religion and it's about cultures as well, right? Cultures as well. For example, in Islamic civilization or Islamic countries, people do not eat pork, right? Do not eat pork. But in Western society, people eat pork, right? Or in India, right? In India, people do not eat beef, right? Something like that. It is about culture, right? It is about culture and religions in civilization, but in ideologies, it's more about political system or economic system. Make sense in mind? Does it make any sense to you? Any other questions? Well, I will give you 8 more minutes where you can ask me some other questions before we officially finish this class. Yes, yes, go ahead.
In the World War II, the event that French and British led Germany invaded
Czechoslovakia.
Yeah. So why they didn't action or raid Germany do that? Can you explain more on that?
Sorry, you asked a question that before World War II,
Yes.
the United Kingdom and France left Germany or Hitler to annex Czechoslovakia or enact Sunderland specifically. So Sunderland was a province, right? A province of Czechoslovakia, right? And in Sunderland, there are many Germans there. There was many German in Sunderland, part of Czechoslovakia, and when Hitler became became leader or chancellor of Germany, in 1939, huh? In 1939, so Hitler was very clear, right? Hitler was very clear. Hitler wanted Germany to become strong, and 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 you know, during that period of time, Hitler and already annexed some countries surrounding countries. For example, Austria. Hitler successfully annexed Austria, and Hitler said that, you know, because Austria used to be a part of Germany, but in history, it is correct. It is correct. Austria was part of the Federation of Germany, right? So when, you know, after Hitler became a chancellor, and Germany became stronger, and countries like, you know, France or the United Kingdom didn't want to have war with Hitler, because after the First World War, people in France and people in the United Kingdom, they didn't want to experience another world war like in the first one. So, you know, leaders of France and leader of the United Kingdom really wanted to avoid that war, right? Avoid another war like just like the first one. So they, you know, they try to appease Hitler. They try to appease Hitler and let he do what he want, with the hope that when France and UK let Hitler to, you know, annex Austria, and let Hitler annex Sunderland, that is part of Czechoslovakia. So they hope that UK and France hope that when Hitler, you know, have Austria and have Sunderland, he would stop, first of all, stop, you know, maybe invading France, and maybe invading uh, the United Kingdom, because, you know, if you look at the map, you'll see that um, um, France and Germany have very close border, close border. So leaders of France and leader of the United Kingdom wanted to appease, right? Wanted to appease Hitler with Sunderland and with you know, Austria, right? That's the reason why, because they didn't want another war with Hitler, right? Because they knew very well that time that if they wanted to stop Hitler, they definitely needed to make war with Hitler. But people in those countries didn't want to, you know, to make war, right? And the leaders themselves, leader of the United Kingdom and France themselves, didn't want to engage in the war with Hitler. So that's the reason why they agree to let Hitler annex Austria and Sunderland, with the hope that Hitler would stop. But, you know, Hitler didn't do that. Hitler didn't stop, right? He didn't stop immediately after, you know, after annexing Sunderland. Hitler annexed the whole Czechoslovakia. And then Hitler sent troops to Poland, right, to annex Poland, to control Poland. So that is the last straw, right? That was the last straw. So when Hitler sent troops to Poland, the United Kingdom and France declared war with Hitler. So that was the starting point of the Second World War. That what you just mentioned on my answer, that the Hitler annexed Austria, and especially, you know, the United Kingdom and France led Hitler to annex Sunderland. That was the policy of appeasement. Right? Let Hitler annex some parts of Europe. Right? Even, you know, Czechoslovakia didn't agree to let Hitler to annex Sunderland, and Czechoslovakia was an ally of UK and France. However, UK and France betrayed Czechoslovakia for the benefit of UK and France. with the hope that Hitler would stop. But finally, Hitler didn't stop. Hitler annexed the whole Czechoslovakia and then sent troops to Poland with aims to annexing Poland, controlling Poland. So when Hitler annexed the whole Czechoslovakia and sent troops to Poland, France and the United Kingdom knew that they was, they was played trick by Hitler. Huh? So Hitler was so genius that negotiated with France and UK in order to annex Czechoslovakia without any casualties, right? And then annex the whole Czechoslovakia as well. Right. So that is policy of appeasement. Right. Policy of appeasement. Chính sách gì ha? Policy of appeasement tiếng Việt là gì? Hòa dịu. Chính sách hòa dịu. Chính sách hòa dịu thì thực ra là rất là fail, đúng không? Rất là fail. Tức là lúc đầu thì định là hòa dịu để cho Đức Hitler không xâm lược các quốc gia khác, cũng như là không xâm lược, không tiến về phía Tây để xâm lược Anh hay là Pháp. Tuy nhiên rằng là cái chính sách đấy đã là chính sách hết sức sai lầm khi mà hòa hoãn, hòa dịu với Đức. Nhưng mà thực ra đấy là cái để mà Đức cứ nghĩ rằng là mình tất cả các quốc gia khác phải nhượng bộ ấy. Thế là họ tiếp tục xâm lược cả Séc, nhưng mà sau đấy thì lại đưa quân vào Ba Lan nữa, đánh chiếm Ba Lan. Sau khi mà đánh chiếm Ba Lan thì Pháp với cả Đức cũng Pháp với Mỹ nhận ra, Pháp với Anh nhận ra rằng là mình đã rất là sai lầm trong cái chính hòa dịu đấy. Lẽ ra nếu trong cái trường hợp mà Pháp với cả Anh là không có cái chính sách hòa dịu đấy, hoặc là có những cái hành động ví dụ như là đưa quân sang để hỗ trợ Tiểu Khắc chẳng hạn, sát chẳng hạn, Tiểu Khắc chẳng hạn, hay là có những cái hành động mạnh tay hơn với Pháp, mạnh tay hơn với Đức, thì có lẽ rằng là chiến tranh thế giới thứ hai sẽ không xảy ra. Có lẽ, rất có lẽ là chiến tranh thế giới thứ hai xảy ra. Thế giờ nhiều người ta cũng rất là blame là đổ lỗi cho Anh với Pháp là bởi vì cái chính sách hòa dịu đấy của Đức, của Pháp với Đức, Pháp và Anh với Đức. Okay, make sense?
The teacher.
Any other question? So focus on the First World War and the Second World War, huh? That's very important, and also the reason for the First and the Second World War as well. And Germany was actually the very important factor. Was a very important country, important name that you need to mention, you need to pay attention to, read more. Okay. So I yes, go ahead.
I just very confused about the way you put forward some question for the global issue. Is it related to the lesson we have learned already?
Yes.
Study?
No more case study. Because if I give you another case study, you do not have enough time to finish your final exam. Because I calculate the time, and I see that you need to have about 5 to 10 minutes to read the question and then make the outline, right? And then 25 to 30 minutes to write. So I decided not to give you 2 case studies, but just give you 1 case study. 1 case study is enough for your second question related to theory, and the third question I just ask you opinion question, do you think, or something like that. Yes. So make sure, I will ensure that in 120 minutes you can finish it. And make sure that focus on the outline. So do not give me very not very clear. Do not give me unclear structure. It's just not good for your mark. Okay. Any other question? No. So maybe I think we should stop here. I'll see you maybe next semester, huh? Maybe next semester. So if you still have any other question, or if you still have any problem with your attendance check, so just tell me, right? Just email me or inbox me on Teams, right? Teams box chat box. So I will answer it, and I will correct it as soon as possible. So it will not affect your final, your 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 overall mark. Okay, so I'll see you maybe next semester, and good luck to your final exam. Right? Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, teacher.
Goodbye,
Thank you,
teacher.
teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, teacher.